Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday and welcome back to the stream. I hope everyone is having a great Thursday and weekend eve, if you will. And thank you so much for joining us a bit later today on the stream than our normal streaming time. I know this week has been a little bit crazy, so wanted to just give you guys an update into everything that is going on. As you know, from Monday, yesterday and on Tuesday, I had the opportunity to go up to Orlando, which is about a 3.5-hour drive away from Miami, to speak on behalf of Gen Z and what social media creators are doing to change hearts and minds towards the gospel and towards Jesus Christ in the age of media. NRB is the National Religious Broadcasting Conference, and I had the opportunity to speak on a panel at it last year in Nashville, returned this year in Orlando, and in a space that is so heavily dominated by television and radio and podcasts and newspapers and print media, being able to interject a little bit and provide a case for social media content creation in the new age of media, particularly for Generation Z, was a fantastic opportunity, and I think really catalyzed a great conversation that otherwise may not have happened to the same level that it did at the event. So huge thank you again from me to NRB for having me back. It was a total blast to be there and be in Orlando and be present with everyone there in the moment in Orlando, and just hopefully encourage more of a trajectory on social media to expose my generation to the truth of the gospel, to objective truth in general, and to a countercultural lifestyle that's bringing us away from the hopelessness and desperation of where we are at today in American culture, to give us something to have faith and hope in the future. As you can probably also tell a little bit, my voice is still on the mend, on a little bit of recovery, but not streaming yesterday or on Tuesday did make a huge impact in saving my voice from total death. So thank you so much for your patience in taking a few days off of the stream to try to get my voice back. It has been a crazy few days and we are still on the mend, but we are getting there for sure. And that's why we didn't end up streaming yesterday or on Tuesday, but we are back today. We are concurrently live on this beautiful Thursday on YouTube, on Rumble, on Facebook, on Locals, and of course on Getter as well. And I'm so glad that each and every one of you are here. I'm going to say hello to some people to kick off our stream, but first just want to remind you that after the stream, we will be doing our post-stream Q&A exclusively on Locals, which you guys are all invited to, as I'm losing my voice again, and would love to have you all come and ask as many questions as you possibly can, assuming she doesn't lose her voice before then, as well as we have 2 new episodes of our series from Locals, both Outdated and Domus, coming to you tomorrow. Oh man, you guys, this is rough. You might have to just give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm literally dying. It's fine. We have a new episode to conclude our announcements for the day of our series Outdated and Domus that live exclusively over on Locals, coming to you tomorrow morning, since we weren't doing some video content to try to give my voice a rest on Tuesday and Wednesday. Obviously, that is not 100% completed, but we are getting there, and I'm really excited about having this conversation today. So we'll probably stream for about 45 minutes to give my voice the opportunity to fully heal instead of our normal full hour of streaming, hour plus. And then we'll move over to locals and answer as many questions as we possibly can. As we're jumping in, want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our amazing friends over at Public Square for sponsoring this stream today. I don't know if you guys saw this, but in the wake of all of the Target backlash and targeting kids, no pun intended, with the LGBTQ plus agenda and gender theory and everything else, Public Square app downloads actually surpassed Amazon downloads this week, which is the best possible news under the sun. I am so excited about Public Square continuing to make an impact in the world. If you guys aren't familiar with Public Square already, Public Square is an online marketplace of tens of thousands of small businesses that share your values. Everything from coffee shops to travel agencies to people to help you do your taxes and everything in between. You guys have already added your small businesses to Public Square at like record numbers, which I'm super excited about, but I'm dropping the link right now in our live chat. If you are a small business owner, you need to be putting your small business on Public Square. It basically is the parallel new Amazon, and we are building this economy for businesses that you know you can feel really good about supporting and who you know will turn around and support you. So go check out Public Square, download the app on the App Store or on Google Play. PublicSQ.com is the other place you can go through a web browser if you don't want to download the app. But trust me, like literal best decision I ever made was downloading Public Square. I love supporting the businesses over there, and I love to see Public Square continue to grow and that they're joining us very soon over here in Florida from California. They are making the move to Florida, and I could not be more excited to see more small businesses, now a big business, continue to make Florida their new home base, just like we did. Okay, let's say hi to some people, and then we're going to jump right in because today is a little bit of a controversial, touchy subject, and I want all of your thoughts and feedback throughout the entire stream in our live chat. So if you're not used to dropping things in our live chat, please take a second to test something out, put a little hello in the chat and drop it in there, because I want your opinions throughout our entire conversation today. Today is a little bit different than the normal stuff we talk about, and I also know people are overwhelmingly, extremely polarized and opinionated about what we are going to talk about today. So I'll say up front, I personally am not going to be taking a stance on who I want to see as president of the United States today on this stream. I do want your thoughts on it. What I really want us to focus on with the Ron DeSantis announcement for president is the way in which that announcement happened and some of the concerns and red flags I'm seeing across the board from a right of center perspective in the wake of that announcement, and where we can learn to find intellectual independence and just moral unification again today as the Republican Party and just more broadly speaking, the conservative movement, speaking as a young Gen Zer who feels largely disenfranchised by the Republican Party and the conservative movement going into 2024. Some of you may agree with what I have to say. Some of you may fundamentally disagree with what I have to say. Some of you are international viewers, including Dutch Canadian, who just jumped into our YouTube chat watching from the Netherlands. I know we have a really big international audience every single day, so you might feel like this might not apply to you. But I am super excited to get all of your thoughts on who you would like to see as president of the United States, why you are supporting those particular people, and more importantly, beyond that conversation, what role social media and independent media has to play in the race in 2024 outside of television or radio or podcast networks or any of that. Evan, thank you so much for supporting us in our YouTube super chat. You are the absolute best. I'm going to go use that money to go buy more cough drops this afternoon because it has been a wild few days losing my voice, and I just pray that we can get it back very soon. So throughout this stream, just know you might agree with me, you might disagree with me, but I want all of your thoughts, and please consider dropping all of those in the live chat as we go. Let's say hi to some people as we're jumping in. Orthodox Russ is watching on YouTube. Leon is watching on YouTube. Julie's watching on YouTube. We've got Red Scorpion, Anthony, Dr. B, Dutch Canadian, Frostfang, Maze Page, Evan. We've got That's the Book, Julie, Daphne, Luciano, and more, all watching on YouTube. Peggy is watching us over on Facebook. Frostfang and Uncle Pudge are watching on Rumble, and we love our Rumble gang. You guys are watching in droves right now. My sweet fiance is coming with tea. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Our locals gang is out here in force. We love to see it. Johnny is here. We've got African Warlord here and Alex Padron, of course, our homeboy. I want everybody across every single platform that we are watching and streaming on right now to wish our amazing friend Alex Padron a happy birthday. Alex, you're 26, if I remember correctly, right? We're so happy for you. What an exciting day. You're just a few days ahead of me. My birthday is on Saturday. But Alex, you guys, is a total real one. He tunes into every single stream, regardless of what time or day we are streaming. He likes every single post on social media, comments on literally everything, shares everything. Alex, you have been a real day one supporter, and I am so unbelievably grateful for you. I'm so happy I got to give you a hug and meet you in person at Turning Point USA's America Fest in December, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you very, very soon. It is his 26th birthday, so let's all drop big W's and love and happy birthdays in the chat across platforms for our amazing friend Alex. Alex, we are so unbelievably grateful for you. And you're getting lots of happy birthday messages across the spectrum, across the internet right now. So I hope you have the best day, and we're going to give you some extra love in our post-stream Q&A exclusively over on Locals. Okay, let's just jump right in to the substance of what we want to talk about today. You guys know that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's kind of a legend, has officially announced his candidacy for President of the United States. He made that announcement yesterday on Twitter, specifically on Twitter Spaces, which is basically like the Twitter version of live streaming. And there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out, in my opinion, with that particular venue of content delivery. But ultimately, it was an interesting move to make such an announcement specifically on a social media platform, not through a Fox News hit or a Newsmax special or a big piece of coverage that was picked up by every major broadcast network. Rather, in a simple, down-to-earth, one-on-one, authentic, real-time conversation in the world of live streaming, just like we are doing right now on this Thursday afternoon, that is the most authentic deliverance of content and of information that we possibly have right now in 2023 America. You guys know that we are big fans of social media. We are big fans of live streaming in particular because it's not scripted. It's not, this filtered teleprompter style, perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect lighting or set situation that feels like a sold bill of goods to you that you normally get in cable television and in radio and the podcast world and pre-recorded content, but rather there are glitches and there are things that happen and it's real, right? If you mess up in real time. If you stumble over your words, you stumble over your words in real time. There's not a lot of hidden agenda there. What you see is what you get in the live streaming world. And that's why we do live streaming every single day from a content perspective to speak specifically to Generation Z, because Gen Z is really gravitating towards this sense of grassroots authenticity, of an unscripted reality and commentary of what a creator believes, what they support, what their opinions are, and there's no paid off or hidden agenda whatsoever. So I was excited, really excited to see Governor Ron DeSantis officially declare his 2024 candidacy on Twitter Spaces. Personally, I wish that it wasn't happening on Twitter, but I understand why that app was chosen for a strategic messaging perspective with Elon Musk and the growth of Twitter in the last several months. I think that perhaps there's a lot of opportunity, particularly with Rumble being the official live streaming partner of the 2023, later on this year, primary Republican presidential debates, for more live streaming, authentic, in real time, not scripted or teleprompter vibes conversations from all of the Republican candidates for president, and hopefully from the Democrat candidates for president as well. Of course, they just canceled their debates outright because they don't want to have a single conversation about anything and would rather just tell you who you get to vote for instead of let you make up your own mind. But I loved seeing the announcement from Ron DeSantis. I thought the messaging was very impressive. Obviously, the good news about the state of Florida is not just that Florida is playing this national culture war, getting the attention of the press's style political game, which is, of course, important. All of the things that you hear about the state of Florida on the national media scale, from protecting kids' innocence from pornographic books that had to be removed from elementary schools, to making sure that children can't be chemically castrated, or even protecting the lives of preborn children starting at 6 weeks. I think we can even do better than that, but that's a really big leap for the state of Florida that just happened a few weeks ago. All of these things are very important and they are great. But the big good information, as Ben Shapiro so eloquently stated a few days ago in a different piece of content about Florida, is that between all of the national culture war stuff that you see in the mainstream media and at the national level, Florida is also just a really well-governed state, right? We're talking about no state income tax, and actually Florida has the second lowest state tax burden across the board, across every type of tax for its citizens in the country. Only behind Alaska, which actually subsidizes its citizens to live there. Based. We love Alaska. Thanks to all that oil and gas money and other things. But Florida is an abundantly easy place to live as a young person trying to economically figure it out and get a head start ahead of everybody else in the country that's trying to make a way to make ends meet. Florida is a state where a hurricane can hit you on a Tuesday, and 3 days later you are rebuilding a bridge to an island to make sure that people can get back to their homes and we can take care of people who have been physically or economically displaced by a natural disaster. Florida is a place that removed any taxes whatsoever from childcare items like diapers and formula and cribs because they want to incentivize people having children rather than shying away from the beauty and the gift of parenthood. So not only are Floridians playing at this national culture war level conversation of the gender theory nonsense that's taking over children, of protecting preborn children, which is hugely, hugely important, and so many other national style issues, border security, law enforcement just being some of them. But from a strictly governance and statewide policy perspective, there is a reason that 1,200 plus individuals from across America are moving to the state of Florida every single day. There is a reason that people like me moved to Florida this spring because we wanted a piece of the Floridian American dream that other people are seeming to lack access to. We want low tax burdens. We want a law enforcement agency in our neighborhoods that's actually going to protect us and decrease crime, which is exactly what happened in my new home city of Miami, while homicide rates and violent crime rates are dramatically increasing in every single other major American city like San Francisco, like Denver, like Portland, like Chicago and New York. There's a reason that people like me are moving to states where families are incentivized, and we make it easier to have people have families rather than punishing them for that or somehow brainwashing them into thinking that that's not going to be good for them. There's a reason that Florida is leading the way on so many other issues that you would never hear about in the mainstream media, but make life easier for us, from infrastructure to environmentalism to tax policy to education and school choice and everything in between, that makes Florida such a special, wonderful, and great place to live. So regardless of who you feel about who you would like to see as president of the United States, I think there's a lot to be said about incentivizing the American people to look at the policy and the governance structure of how Florida is operating. Ron DeSantis obviously wants to take that to a national conversation in his race for president of the United States. And whether you feel more gravitated towards a DeSantis or a Donald Trump or a Vivek or a Nikki Haley or a Tim Scott or any of the other zillion people running for president of the United States right now in this really crowded Republican primary race, there's something special that I think we all can acknowledge that is happening in the state of Florida that I would like to see replicated at the national level. Interestingly, in the wake of this announcement, I have seen nothing but disunity, these conversations that are not bringing people together, our inability to find anything positive to say about anyone who wants to challenge former President Donald Trump, who I love and support. There's a picture of me in a MAGA hat right there hiding behind me and another one right over there and a signed letter from former President Donald Trump literally right behind me. I love President Trump. I worked for President Trump. Huge supporter of the man. But I found it incredibly odd reading through the comments sections of Ron DeSantis' announcement for president, of tweets referencing their support of Ron DeSantis from influencers or other individuals local to Florida who would like to see him become president of the United States, that people have just lost the ability to find virtue in anyone who is not their favorite person from a few years ago. And I don't know what the Republican primary is going to look like. I couldn't tell you today who the Republican nominee for president of the United States is. Frankly, I couldn't even tell you who the Democrat nominee for president of the United States is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, because there's a lot that could happen between now and next spring or even next November, right? What we are looking at is a really complicated, confusing time where anything could happen in the race for president of 2024. Maze Page, thank you so much, by the way, for supporting us in our YouTube super chat. So unbelievably grateful for you. But there's this lack of ideological and intellectual independence that I am seeing from the conservative movement and from the Republican Party right now, where people have this lockstep, almost authoritarian adherence to one person always, without any ability to find the virtue in anyone else. And fascinatingly, the people who 6 months ago would have been fawning over Governor Ron DeSantis' policy at the Florida level, and who would have said even a few years ago, I'm voting for Donald Trump in 2016, I'm voting for Donald Trump in 2020, I'd really like to see Ron DeSantis run for president of the United States in 2024, people have melted their brains, and everybody is saying, no, it's not Ron DeSantis's time yet, whatever that's supposed to mean, and we'll unpack that here in a little bit. Again, not providing my own personal who I want to see for president right now. I'm just unpacking this as a political strategy conversation. People are saying it's not his time yet. He needed to sit back and wait until 2028 or whatever, and then I'll support him because Donald Trump needs to have another term in office. I just want to remind and challenge people, there is no such thing as a guarantee that whoever the Republican nominee will be for president of the United States is guaranteed to become president of the United States next November. In fact, there's a pretty damn good likelihood that whoever the Republican Party puts up in 2024 might lose, will likely lose to whoever is in power because of a whole host of issues, because of voter security concerns, which we all rightfully have, because of messaging concerns that I have voiced throughout the midterm elections last year, now going into 2024, that I continue to voice, particularly as it pertains to millennials and Generation Z voters. There's a whole lot of fight that has to be put in before next November to even remotely have an argument of who would make a better president. First, we have to analyze who's going to make the best candidate going up against the Democrat Party. And make no mistake about it, I actually don't even think Biden is going to be the nominee for the Democrat Party. I think there's a lot to be said that anything could happen between now and next spring. And there's some interesting choices that, in my opinion, regardless of who the Republican Party puts up, we probably would lose against, which is incredibly frustrating, but also an opportunity. I don't say that as a death sentence. I say that as an opportunity to choose a great, charismatic, amazing, orator style candidate who can take the ideas of traditional Judeo-Christian values that made this country great to begin with, that can take the ideas of a Florida-style governance and spread them throughout the country, but also in a charismatic, fun, and interesting way. And I'm not here to say who that person is, but our inability to even ask ourselves that question because we are so lockstep, authoritarian style adhered to what happened 4 years ago is concerning to me as a conservative who is looking for an opportunity to take back the White House, take back our politics, and of course is working every single day to take back our culture in the United States of America. Fascinatingly, one of the biggest concerns, analysis pieces, comments that I was seeing in response to Ron DeSantis announcing his candidacy for president of the United States, particularly in the comment section on Instagram for his race or his candidacy for president, was that everyone was saying, well, he's supported by the deep state. He's upheld by the mainstream media. There's a reason the mainstream media isn't going after DeSantis, which if you have half a brain at all, you will realize is nothing more than a bold-faced lie, because the mainstream media hates Ron DeSantis far more than they hate President Donald Trump, at least today. And even in the wake of just his announcement on Twitter, which we're going to unpack here in a second a little bit more in depth, the mainstream media is going after Ron DeSantis with a ferocity that I cannot quite wrap my head around. And if you genuinely believe that Trump is more hated by the media than Ron DeSantis today, which, by the way, the media is going out of their way to call DeSantis a worse Trump, a more extreme Trump, which I'm seeing from The View. I see that on MSNBC. I see that on CNN all the time. I just want to encourage you to go beyond a screenshot of one headline or somebody's comment on social media or a random person's tweet in a massive Twitter thread. Go out of your way to look at the primary sources yourself, because all it takes is one Google search for Ron DeSantis presidential announcement, and these are the headlines that are going to come up. From Axios: Ron DeSantis declares 2024 candidacy in glitchy Twitter Spaces event. How about from Politico? Trump had an escalator. DeSantis had a meltdown. 2 weird campaign launches of the modern era by the numbers. How about from Vox? Ron DeSantis' very online and very disastrous 2024 campaign announcement. The Florida governor took to Twitter Spaces to announce a presidential run. It wasn't pretty. From The Guardian, what went wrong at Ron DeSantis' U.S. presidential campaign launch? How about from PBS? DeSantis' presidential campaign announcement plagued by glitches on Twitter. Or The New York Times: awkward silence, Ron DeSantis' bold Twitter gambit that flopped. The Florida governor wanted to show off his tech savvy by announcing his presidential campaign on Twitter. It quickly devolved into the conference call from hell. Or The Washington Post: Twitter repeatedly crashes as DeSantis tries to make presidential announcement. It was supposed to be a monumental occasion for Twitter, and then they just called it an absolute disaster later on in The Washington Post. Or even from USA Today: President Joe Biden jabs Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over announcement crash on Twitter. None of these headlines are supporting Ron DeSantis or upholding his policies or trying to provide more of a case to love Ron DeSantis than love Donald Trump. It seems to me there's a pretty unilateral filter through which the American media is analyzing Ron DeSantis. Maybe I'm really far off base, but it seems to me that there is a very overt anti-Ron DeSantis bias. So I don't know where a lot of the backlash and anger and extreme commentary coming from many diehard Trump supporters, which again, I love President Donald Trump. I don't know where that backlash is coming from on social media that Trump is upheld or DeSantis is upheld by the mainstream media. DeSantis works for the deep state. DeSantis, blah, blah, blah. What on God's green earth is proving to be evidence to support those claims? Anything? Because I have yet to see any concrete piece of evidence that would help me to believe that piece of information at all. Evan says in our YouTube chat, God, these headlines are so biased that they don't even try to appear impartial anymore. They don't. So I don't know where the DeSantis is beloved by the media, DeSantis is beloved by the deep state, DeSantis is beloved by Democrats, XYZ information is coming from, but it certainly isn't upheld by the information that I sought out independently to go figure out what was going on. Maybe it's just me. What I do really want us to focus on, though, beyond just the media bias against all of this, beyond the Trump-Ron DeSantis back and forth argument that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, I'm sure, and in the next few months will be a major piece of conversation and contention for many, many people, is where we are seeing a shift away from the mainstream media and towards independent commentary, towards live streaming, etc., in the age of modern politics. And I will just say, I, for one, was incredibly encouraged to see Ron DeSantis make this announcement through a live stream on social media. I am not a big fan of Twitter Spaces. I don't think it works very well. And I personally like to see live streaming in the more overt video format, like here on YouTube, on Rumble, on Locals, on Getter, everywhere that we normally stream. And that's why I stream on the platforms that I do. But to have a major presidential announcement, candidacy announcement for someone who could be a legitimate contender for a party nominee of the two-party system, a legitimate contender for president of the United States, regardless of who you feel you want to be the nominee. I think it's easy to say that this is a legitimate contender. This is a very successful governor of a major state, the number one state that people are moving to in America, who has a very unique policy and governance stance that is working in an America that's crashing and burning before our very eyes. So to see a legitimate contender for president of the United States take to Twitter, to social media, to bypass a Fox News hit or a CNN interview or an MSNBC special, or even just a press conference that would be picked up by radio and television and everyone else in between, but rather to do this through a live stream on social media was incredibly enlightening and hopeful for me, because it tells me that whoever you are going to see as the next president of the United States, there is a clear seismic shift in the world of American politics away from formal, buttoned-up, pre-recorded press conferences and teleprompter speeches and towards social media, towards authenticity, towards interesting, better storytelling, compelling content that Americans are going to resonate with without the middleman needing to shape the narrative and shape the conversation about what type of content we are watching. The same can be said for the left, by the way. The Biden White House in the last few weeks has gone out of their way to hire what they call an army of influencers, an army of content creators who are doing press conferences and creating content from inside the White House and of the Biden campaign going into 2024, specifically to bring the ideas of the Democrat Party and of the Biden White House and administration to the American people. So I'm excited to see more conservatives take our messaging to an authentic grassroots place like social media. And as for a crash of Twitter Spaces, because 700,000 people tuned in at exactly the same time to watch a live stream on a platform that doesn't really have live streaming built into it to be successful quite yet. I think there's a lot that needs to be remodeled from a Twitter perspective to get a live stream format like this to work as well as it does on a long form video platform. I don't see any problem with that crashing whatsoever. That, to me, gives me hope and encouragement that people will go out of their way to listen to independent content, to think independently for themselves, and to remove the power of creating the narrative and crafting the narrative away from corporate mainstream media and giving it directly back to the people. I don't think in the last 100 years in America, we ever could have imagined a presidential candidate and a legitimate contender for president of the United States take their ideas to the people directly to announce that candidacy. Even the king of Twitter himself, President Donald Trump, didn't do that in his re-announcement to run for president of the United States again. I don't think we ever could have predicted that something like this would become the future of media, that independent content creation, independent journalism, and independent thought from the constituency, from people who could potentially vote for you, would become such a forefront piece in the American political zeitgeist. But I love seeing it. And my hope is that this announcement for President of the United States is going to continue shifting the conservative conversation and the conservative movement towards that independent content and that independent thought. Because the more opportunities we have to host conversations like this that are not facilitated through cable news, that are not facilitated through the radio, that are not facilitated through our television screens or on newspaper headlines, but go to where people are, to meet them where they are at and bring them along with us on this journey, the more opportunities we will have to fundamentally change both culture and politics in the United States of America. What we do on these live streams every single day can no longer be isolated to independent creators like myself. And I say this all the time, right? I say this literally every single day. And those of you who watch the stream every single day know this about me. I encourage each and every one of you to go out and become your own independent content creator. Because now more than ever before, conservatives need to take our ideas and go where culture is. Newsflash, culture is vehemently running away from paying cable news bills and upping our newspaper subscription fees and scrolling through radio stations in our car. Where we are going to is this, to our TikTok feeds, to our live streaming platforms, even to Twitter, which is not my favorite place to be, but is an unbelievably successful messaging platform that we figured out in 2016, that a president of the United States does not have to rely on mainstream media to speak directly to the American people, but can go directly himself or someday herself. I want to see more of that. And it has to start with our willingness to not be perfect. I was so disheartened by the number of people that suggested Ron DeSantis' announcement for president was somehow a failure to launch or was inadequate for what we're looking for a presidential candidate, or somehow wasn't polished or professional enough in announcing a candidacy for president of the United States from a right of center perspective and from the Republican Party. Because newsflash, me as a conservative voter who feels unbelievably disenfranchised by the trajectory of the Republican Party, I do not want someone representing me on the campaign trail, in the Oval Office, or anywhere in between who is a buttoned up, teleprompter reading, polished professional. I want a real person who is willing to go do a live stream to 700,000 people and understand that the platform might crash. Our live streams crash all the time. Our Wi-Fi goes out, the microphone stops working, the audio is weird, I start coughing and need to hit the BRB button on the stream. We do that all the time, but guess what? It's not fake, it's real. And what you see is what you get on these live streams. I don't want a presidential, buttoned up, polished politician telling me what I can and cannot support and vote for going into 2024. And the incredible irony of all of this is the people that are yelling at me, telling me that that was somehow a failure or something that I shouldn't have hope in or that I shouldn't have resonated with because it was a crash or a disaster or a failure to launch or wasn't professional enough, all of those people supported Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020 because of the same reason that I just told you. Because he was a rough around the edges, tell it to you like it is, unbuttoned, real person that was willing to say what everyone else was thinking in a tweet. And now all of a sudden, Twitter is not professional. Twitter is not presidential. Being willing to type something with a typo or do a live stream with a crash or not be this suit and tie Fox News hit politician, that's not enough for us anymore, because that was more than enough for us 8 years ago. That was more than enough for us 4 years ago. And now it's something that I shouldn't be looking for? There's not a lot of ideological consistency with what I'm seeing from the conservative movement and the Republican Party right now. And more so than the hypocrisy of it wasn't professional enough to announce on social media, what I'm really, really frustrated with today, and what you all should be frustrated with, regardless of who you want to support as a candidate for president. We're not here to talk about that today. What you should be frustrated by is the level of attacks, of ad hominem slander, and the level of just overt crazy lunacy that I am seeing from people attacking conservatives who suggest that maybe there's room for more candidates than just one in any political race. That maybe it's time for the Republican Party to evaluate our policies, to evaluate our messaging strategy, to evaluate the conservatives who feel really disenfranchised by the GOP, but want to hold on to traditional Judeo-Christian values and want to bring our country forward past 2020 rather than going back and living in 2020 over and over again. Because I will tell you what, in the last 24 hours, I have seen more behavior that is childish, that is authoritarian, that isn't funny, and that embraces the vein of cancel culture from the right than I have from the left in the last 6 months. Maybe I'm seeing things that you guys aren't seeing. Maybe I just am spending too much time researching this because I'm a political nerd. But when I see posts on social media that are directly attacking the faith of a Ron DeSantis, I have a problem with that as a Christian conservative. When I see posts on social media that start name-calling Catholics for wanting to live a saint-like life and stray our country away from sin, I have a problem with that as a Christian conservative, as someone who will always support the gospel before I ever support a presidential campaign. When I see posts on social media saying that Ron DeSantis announcing on Twitter somehow means he's the same as Satan, I have a problem with that as a Christian conservative. And it's a real turnoff to me to see so many people that I run in these circles with in the political space immediately latch onto those things for a viral tweet opportunity, or for a viral Instagram post opportunity, or to appease donors and advertisers on their podcasts and social media programs and for their nonprofits, when they're literally turning around the next day and pointing the finger at the left and saying cancel culture is evil, or we shouldn't be name calling, we're better than that. Or the left is demonic, and the left leans into all of the conversations about Satan, but then in the same sentence will say the exact same thing that they say about the left to somebody in our own camp. I have a problem with that. And in particular, this post absolutely shocked me. And I don't know if you guys saw this post on social media, but President Trump's social media team put out this video meme, I guess, supposedly making fun of Ron DeSantis' announcement for candidacy for president in Twitter Spaces on Instagram. And I think they thought it was going to be funny. It did not come across as funny to me whatsoever. I don't know if I'm just not the target audience for this joke, but I want to know if you think something like this is funny. They put out this post that says Ron DeSantis announcement on Twitter Spaces. I'm going to have to readjust this to make sure you can see the whole thing. Here we go. And it's supposed to be this video of Elon and Ron talking about his announcement for president with all the people that would supposedly side with Ron DeSantis in his race for president. George Soros, Klaus Schwab, Dick Cheney, and then Adolf Hitler and the devil. And then Donald Trump comes in and does some dunk sentence or whatever, like an own the libs style attack. And that's supposed to be funny. About a potential conservative president of the United States, a potential actually Catholic president of the United States rather than Joe Biden, about easily the best governor in the United States who's good enough to live under in Florida, but apparently not to run with for president of the United States. I don't get the joke. Oh, and the FBI pops in as well, which doesn't even make any sense because the FBI hates Ron DeSantis and hates everything that he stands for. So, A, stuff like this just isn't funny. And B, when people like me say that we have a problem with it, and then we spend the next 24 hours vehemently attacking people like me, saying that we're backstabbing the Republican Party or we're not a real conservative because we dare to have some level of independent thought instead of just blindly following the same person endlessly, who, again, I really support. I was on the cover of Newsweek magazine, which you can't see in the frame, but is literally framed right there in my bookshelf, supporting Donald Trump. Like, I'm a Trump girl. But at what point do we realize that a movement and a political party, and even bigger than a political party, our ability to speak truth into a world that is rejecting the very concept of truth, at what point do we realize that cannot be solely attached to one person? That our movement, our ability to bring people along with us, to bring new people into this movement, cannot be isolated to one person. Because A, that's called a monarchy or totalitarianism, and B, one person does not live forever. So you do have to plant seeds for the inevitable time in which that person is not here. At what point do we realize telling the truth to America, reinstituting morality in America, bringing people back towards a level of baseline sanity in America has to be bigger than MAGA? I don't know who I'm planning on specifically supporting in the Republican primaries. I'm looking forward to having a debate because that's how I'm going to make up my mind, is seeing all of those people up there together, talking to each other like adults, hopefully, to figure out what the next step and what the next trajectory of our country is. And I'm sad that the Democrats don't have the same opportunity to do that because they're canceling the Democrat primary debates. Tells you everything you need to know about that, by the way. But I just want to encourage you to think for yourself. Not just in politics, but in every aspect of your life. Stop blindly following people just because you happened to support something that they said or did in the past. That goes for your pastor. That goes for the people that you follow on social media. That goes for the YouTube channels that you listen to, the podcasts that you listen to, and of course, who you want to run for president and who you want to support for president. Everyone in your life needs to be filtered, and the people that you surround yourself with need to be filtered, and the information that you take in every day needs to be filtered at least through your ability to rationalize it in your own head, if not common sense and objective truth and biblical values and how it aligns with our deepest sense of faith in God. Of course, those things are important. But start with, am I thinking as an individual, or am I just doing what everybody around me is doing for the sake of doing it? If conservatives lose our ability to think critically as independent people, as individuals, we are no better than the left. And that's a harsh reality to come up against. When we start canceling our own people because they might disagree on who would make a better primary candidate for president, are we better than the left? When we start pointing the finger at each other and saying, oh, well, you announced for president on social media and I announced on television, and that was way more polished and presidential. And people don't really go on Twitter. They just go to TV. They just go to radio. Are we really better than the left? When we start saying that you are holier than thou and somehow sanctimonious for practicing your faith and encouraging a biblical worldview and sharing the gospel with America, are we really better than the left? I want to see a Republican Party and a conservative movement that has a resurgence unlike anything we've ever seen in 2024. And I pray that we have the opportunity to actually get there. But as of today, I don't know that that's possible. Because the really sad reality is this. In 2023 America, it should be the easiest thing in the entire world. It should be a no-brainer to defeat politically and culturally the people who want to literally cut genitals off of your children. It should be unbelievably easy to counter the arguments of people ushering in mass genocide of preborn babies because they are an inconvenience to us, like the girl working for Planned Parenthood that I just talked to on the sidewalk today. That should be easy. It should be so easy to say, we don't want pornographic books in elementary school libraries, so we should all rally around that together and just fight against it together and go from there. It should be the easiest thing in the world for any denomination or frankly any religious person in America to look at what the FBI is doing to Catholics, spying on them going to mass, and somehow infringing upon our ability to worship freely, which is the First Amendment for a reason, and rally together as conservatives and say we are not okay with that. Instead of pointing the finger and saying, well, they're not real Christians or real conservatives, so I'm okay with that. Instead of fighting actual legitimate evil in our society, instead of defeating politically and culturally, and defeat isn't even the right word, instead of changing minds of people who have been sucked into the indoctrination, understandably so, because every single pillar of American society has embraced overt leftism, radical leftism, from entertainment to education to politics to the church and everything in between. I don't even blame those people for believing those things most of the time because they've never heard a counter argument. Instead of actively working to change minds and to bring America back towards a sense of reality rather than the upside down, we'll get to decency and morality later, but how about just reality? We can start there. Instead of locking arms and figuring out a way for us to do that together, we're all spending our time pointing the finger at each other, calling each other stupid nicknames, and saying, well, you're not a real Republican, or you're not a real conservative, or if it's not this specific one person, I don't want to hear it. You're fake. You're part of the deep state. You're an operative somehow. The media loves you. I don't want you in my camp. Newsflash. If we act like that, our asses will be handed to us on a glorious silver platter in 2024. And I'm so sick and tired of being asked if I'm tired of winning yet, when instead of actually winning, which we have the capacity to do easily, it should be the easiest thing in the entire world, we're canceling each other. Why? It's not even about compromise at this point, because I hear a lot of people say, I don't want to give up my convictions to compromise for something or whatever. Forget about compromise. You don't have to compromise on anything. We're all on the same team. We all want America to be taken back from the people who are seeking to destroy it from the inside out. Why do we have such an inability to realize that, to think critically, individually about that, and instead get sucked in to the same groupthink, lockstep, authoritarian, cancel culture mentality that we claim to be fighting a culture war against every single day? I don't know how to fix it. I've made several suggestions, and they don't seem to have been embraced by the powers that be anytime recently. But I don't know what else to say other than it is desperately time for a change. Not just from the Republican Party, not just from the conservative movement, but from rational, truth-believing Americans in general, if we want reality to exist in America at all in the future. Because what we're doing now might make for a viral tweet, or might blow up on Instagram as one post, might get you 300 new followers on the platform of your choosing when you comment something so pathetically ad hominem style attack that I can't even wrap my head around it. But is it going to win the soul of our country? Is it going to teach people truth in a truthless world? Is it going to embrace bringing new people who feel wildly disenfranchised by the leftist Democrat Party of today when they themselves are classical liberals? Is it going to welcome those people into sanity? Is it going to continue the ambitious experiment of America, which is threatening to fall apart and crumble at any second, into the future? Or are we headed full-blown towards the end of everything we know? If we continue behaving like this, I think you know the answer. So I just want to encourage you. Stop blindly following. Stop blindly following the media. That's why we do these live streams, so that you can think critically for yourself and I can think critically and unpack things in real time with you. And I encourage you all to do the same thing. And I tell you, it's okay if you disagree with me. Go follow other people that I know I disagree with. I do that. Stop following the education system, because Lord knows there's an agenda there. Stop blindly following your pastor. If they're not teaching you biblical truth, Christian reality, good luck. Stop blindly following any candidate for president of the United States just because you did in the past, or any political party telling you you're not a real or fake conservative one way or the other if you don't support one particular person. The fundamental value, the fundamental founding value of this crazy, ambitious experiment we call America was not, here was the guy that was president before, let's make it all happen again in the future. It was not, hey, let's listen to every single thing that the mainstream media tells us to do. Then it was newspapers. Today it's mostly radio and television. It was not, let's attack everybody who thinks differently than us, who worships differently than us, who has a different ethnicity or worldview or set of values than us. The fundamental founding principle of America was liberty, was individualism, was your ability as a single person to have a stake in what the future holds. And that starts with your ability to think critically for yourself. Not on behalf of a party, a political party, not on behalf of a media outlet, not on behalf of your school or your neighborhood or your church building, you. And it's gotten us this far into 2023 from 1776. But if we don't fundamentally adhere to that principle, if we don't grasp that as tightly as we possibly can with our own two hands, I don't know that this conversation could even happen in the next few years. Ronald Reagan said, America is never more than one generation away from extinction. And we love to quote that as conservatives. We love to point the finger at people we politically vote differently than and say that they're causing that and we need to fight back against it. But I think it's time for a rude awakening that we need to look in the mirror and realize if we keep canceling each other like this and we keep fighting each other on who the real conservatives are or who the real Republicans are, or frankly, even who the real Christians are, we are not going to have the opportunity to have this conversation in the future. Because make no mistake about it, the left is not attacking each other like this. They're unifying now more than ever. And our inability to lock arms and fight back against the people who fundamentally want to see this country destroyed from the inside out not only will cost us the presidency of the United States, but might cost us a whole hell of a lot more. Just some food for thought. All right. I need to save my voice. I went on a bit of a rant there. So much for our short 30-minute stream to protect my voice. We are back tomorrow for the stream at 3 p.m. Eastern, our normal streaming time. And of course, want to invite all of you to come join us for our post-stream Q&A on Locals right now. I am dropping the link in our chat. We're going to be unpacking all of this in more detail over there literally as we speak. And I want to hear from each and every one of you who you want to see as president of the United States, or even just the Republican nominee for president. We're going to get into it a little bit more over on Locals exclusively over there. Thank you so much for every one of you that donated in our YouTube super chat. That makes such a huge difference for me as an independent creator. And before you go, please do me a huge favor and hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you're watching on right now. It will always be free to watch these streams, but as an independent creator, it makes such a huge difference to me in our ability to have these conversations that are so very countercultural, but really truly need to happen. Thank you so much again for rolling with the punches this week with my lost voice and traveling up to Orlando to speak at NRB. We are back for the whole week next week. I know a bunch of you probably won't watch on Monday because of Memorial Day, but we will be streaming on Memorial Day, so have no fear. We will be here if you're bored and you have nothing to do. And tomorrow's stream is going to be super fun. Going into my birthday on Saturday, we're going to have ourselves a grand old time. So thank you so much to each and every one of you. I will see all of you jumping over to our Locals post-stream Q&A in just a second. And for everybody else, we will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Locals, don't go anywhere.